So we're going to be doing nested CRUD, but just like on Saturday, we had beer reviews. Today, we're going to be doing something similar, but we're going to be adding another level deep in the nested CRUD application. We're probably not going to do the entirety of like the create, read, update, delete, because a lot of it's just kind of like repeated code. But depending on time, we may or may not get to it, but I just want to kind of show you what the deep nested CRUD might look like. And also just how to architect more, I won't say complicated systems, or like something's in tune to something you actually might be creating. Because right now we're just creating like either one model or two models, but in reality, your application, your idea, your personal project, your group project may and might, and probably will have multiple models. So with that, I'm going to create an app called, it's like a restaurant. I don't even know what I want to call it. Sure, like a restaurant app. So this restaurant app is going to have a list of restaurants, and then each restaurant is going to have a menu or multiple menus. And then each menu is going to have multiple menu items. So if you think of, I don't know, is there an app, like, is there like a web application that is something similar to that? I don't know if Yelp is, or there's one that's like specific to restaurants and menus and all of that. Does anybody know?
Well, if you take out the online ordering aspect, that's essentially DoorDash.
DoorDash. Okay, there you go.
If you, like I said, if you take out the e-commerce aspect.
Yeah. And I think the last full-time cohort had their final group project was, you typically want, there's not an easy way to search for like, oh, I want the best place that has a cheeseburger. You can't be like, I love cheeseburgers, or I love pad thai or something like that. It's like, what restaurant has the best pad thai or the best cheeseburger individual item? Now they have like, all right, what's a good burger place, or what's a good Thai place, or what's a good Chinese place? But there isn't like what has the best individual item, because not necessarily the best restaurant has all the best items. So that's what their goal was to try to create, is kind of like an application that has that you're able to search for like the best items. Anyway, so we can kind of architect something similar to that in a Django full stack deep nested CRUD app. So where am I at? Uh-oh. So I'll list everything out. All right, so I'm in this directory called Django nested deep CRUD. The first thing I'm going to do is create a virtual environment. I'm going to go into that virtual environment. So I'm in that virtual environment. I'm going to create a Django project called, wait, nope. First, I'll need to, what's the thing before I even create a Django project?
Install Django.
Yep, got ahead of myself. Pip install Django. I'm also going to install Psychob G2, Psycho PG2, because I will be using a Postgres database. I know last week I didn't use one a couple of times, but I like to use them just so I can, if I want to see what databases or what's actually in my database on my local machine, I can. All right. So install Django. And I might add some custom or limitations to my models as well. So Django admin start project. I'm gonna call it so how you spell restaurant? No. Is that how you spell it? I always get the AUs.
Yes.
Thank you. Restaurant. Nah, dang it. I'm gonna remove that because I forgot the restaurant project. Period. So I want that manage.py on there. All right, so I got the restaurant project. Now I'm just going to create an app called restaurants. So Python manage.py start app restaurants plural. All right, so I've got a Django project called restaurants, or I got a restaurant project and a restaurants app. So first thing I'm going to do is come into my Django project. I'm just going to get rid of those comments and go down to my installed apps. I'm going to go down to my database, Postgres QL, and my database. Let's call it restaurant. Restaurant DB. I haven't created this database yet, so I'm gonna have to come over here and clear and create DB in the terminal, restaurant DB. There we go. Create my restaurant DB. All right. I'm not going to create users for this yet. I'm just going to create the basic models without users or anything like that. So first thing I'm going to do is go to my URLs.
Hey, Tom,
Yep.
in your settings on the databases, you didn't put a T in Postgres in the
Oh,
post.
thank
Yeah.
you. I know it looked a little weird. Good catch. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So for my URLs, I need to add the include from Django URLs. I'm going to add the restaurants. Restaurants. That's going to include the URLs. All right, so that's in my Django project, my restaurant project URLs. Now I go to the URLs app and click URLs.py. Oh, what happened? URLs.py. And I'm just gonna copy this over just so I don't have to. I don't need include. I don't need admin. So in here, I can just do, views / restaurant list, name, restaurant list. So I'm going to import from views or from everything, import views. All right. So when I go visit, so here are the, I'm just going to go ahead and create like the URLs. So when I go to /restaurants, I want it to list all restaurants. When I go to restaurants /ID, restaurant view restaurant detail. Then if I go restaurants ID /menu, I guess, would it be menu or I'll do menu? No, I'll do menus. Is it menus like so? View restaurant menus, so plural. So a restaurant may have multiple menus like lunch or breakfast, lunch, dinner, and happy hour menu or late night menu or something like that. And then if I go to ID /menu / I guess this will be like restaurant ID. I'll do rest underscore ID, just the shorthand. This will be like menu ID. So view menu detail. So view menu detail. And then I can say view menu ID. What else we got? What do we need? So we got the restaurant lists, menu, the menu ID. So that's the individual menu detail. I guess this would be not menus. List, that's menu detail. And then menu ID slash like the dishes. So view menu or view dish list. So all the menu items. You can even say like instead of dishes, it could be like menu items. And then lastly, dishes slash dish ID. I think there we go. All right.
So can I ask a question? I'm
Yep.
trying to track the way you're routing this out. So your menus views that restaurant's available menu. So you get a list of all your menus, and that's your first route. And then the restaurant ID is for each individual restaurant.
Yeah, so all the restaurants,
Mhm.
individual restaurant.
And then individual restaurants menus,
Yep.
a list of all of their menus. And then that is each
Individual menu now. Oh wait,
With-
hold on
with-
here. Menus list, ID, menus detail.
and so that would make 10 redundant.
Yeah, what the hell, hon? So menus. Oh yeah,
Okay.
too many. Yep. Thank you for
Okay.
good catch. Yeah, I was like, well, yeah. So menus. So restaurants, list restaurants, restaurant detail, list of restaurant menus, individual menu, restaurant menu, a list of dishes from the restaurant's menu, and then individual dish, view dish list, view dish detail. And then detail of the dish on that menu associated with that restaurant.
I'm going to ask another interesting question though.
Yep.
What is your current, I will say current train of thought on how you're managing menu detail, your menu ID and then dishes? Because if you're looking at this and going, okay, menu detail, would that not bring up the just that particular menu? And at that point, you're already looking at a list of the dishes on that menu?
You can look at the dishes, but then you can click into that individual dish and see more information about it.
But would you do that from menus, menu ID, where you can look at the dishes and then be able to go into?
So yeah, so you can like we don't necessarily need this dish list
It's just
here.
like a through path?
Yeah. So
Okay.
so when I create it, you'll see like here's a menu ID of like dinner menu, and then there'll be like a link that says view dinner menu items. Click that, and that's what will take us to all the dishes in that dinner menu.
Okay.
And
But
that's
it's
that's
just
yeah.
a through table essentially to get us from menu to the dish, from the menu ID to the dish ID.
Right. And you don't necessarily need this. But yeah, you don't have to have it this year.
Okay.
So yeah. But So that's the nested. So we got 1, 2, 3 nested routes right now. But before we even create this, let's go ahead and model or create our models. So, so our models, if we have restaurants, we're not using users or anything like that. So how many models will we need? So we have class restaurant, models dot model. I'm just gonna pass right now. What other model will we need?
Menu.
Menu. And last, it's called dish. All right. So for the restaurant, we can have a couple of things. Name, so the restaurant name, models.char field, max length, 255. Or we can say, yeah, like 150. We can change that. The next, we can say like the type of restaurant or like the style of restaurant. What do they usually call it? Type, style, or like whether it's American. What was it?
Cuisine,
I couldn't hear you. Say that again, Josh.
cuisine type,
Cuisine type. Oh God. How do you spell cuisine? Come on. I'm putting on the spot.
CUISINE.
Cuisine type. All right. And that's also going to be except Django models choices, model field reference. So I want to be able to limit. Oh, here we go. So here's a student model. We have freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, graduate, years in school. Let's see, year in school, models, char field, choices, years in school. So we can essentially limit not year in school, but dish type. And instead, cuisine types. What are some cuisine types y'all like?
Are you looking at like a broad category like fast food, fine dining, casual dining, etc.?
I'm more thinking of like the cuisine, like Chinese, American.
Italian, Mexican.
Yeah. So Italian. Is it like authentic Mexican? You can even do like
Tex-Mex.
Oh, Cali-Mex, Tex-Mex.
Is it Tex-Mex like that? Is it hyphenated or is it what is it?
It's
Oh.
hyphenated.
It's gonna be all lowercase. Oh, there's this like there's this Mexican joint in Dallas. I forgot. There's only like a few locations, but they serve like margaritas there. It's kind of like fast foody, but it's I can't remember what it's called. But it's like Tex-Mexy. Like anyway, so Tex-Mex. What else we got?
You said Chinese or
Thai.
Thai.
Sushi,
Is sushi a dish? Yeah, yeah. Or is that, would that be like,
Japanese,
Japanese.
so that,
S,
Guys?
Yeah, see,
American.
yep. Okay,
pizza, sandwiches,
what'd you say?
like pizza places or sandwich places.
Yeah, what would be? What, I think that's good for right now. Trying to think.
Korean, Greek.
Yeah, there's,
Seafood.
yeah. I think this is good for right now. So we can do max length 150, and then we could say choices equals dish type, and we'll see what that kind of looks like when we create that. That's good for right now. So we've got dish type. All right, let's kind of do the same thing for, all right, now we can do menu. Well, not menu. So a menu will belong to a dish, I'm sorry, a restaurant. So we can say restaurant, not capital R, equals models dot foreign key restaurant on delete model cascade related name. What would it be? Menus. All right. And now we can say menu type, or like, so like breakfast, lunch, dinner. So yeah, I guess menu type. Oh, what the hell's going on? So we do like breakfast. Brunch.
You do a list. Is it a convention to have it all caps like that?
No, not necessarily. I'm just making it a const variable, just so to keep things separate and just to conform with the documentation. But I don't think you absolutely need to have it as a const. But yeah, brunch. Do we have any other ones? So we got lunch, dinner, happy hour, late night. I think that's all right. All right. So we could say like type or like time equals I'm just gonna call this menu. And I can do menu type down here. Models dot foreign key. Nope. Models dot char field. Max length. Let's just say 200 choices. Menu. Oh no, that's gonna run into some issues. Menu time of menu. There we go. All right. And then last one with dish. So a dish belongs to a menu. So we can do the same thing for here. Instead of restaurants, we can say menu, and then dishes. The name of the dish. You can do like the same thing we're doing up here. Models of char field. $255. We can do the price of it. Models dot decimal field. Max digits. We do 4 decimal places 2. All right. Does anybody have any questions on this model or these models? No. All right. So I'm going to do def under string self self dot or return self dot name self dot menu type self dot name, I think, again for the restaurant. Great. All right. So now I'm going to Python manage.py, make migrations. Uh-oh. Oh. Because I got ahead of myself. I'm just going to comment that out just so we can run these. There we go. Python manage.py, migrate. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and create a super user so I can get into the admin dashboard. So Python manage.py, create super user, and then just leave everything blank. 1, 2, 3, and just use the default everything. Now I'm going to run the server. And now I can go ahead, localhost 8,000/admin. What didn't I do? Does anybody know what I didn't do yet?
Add to admin.py.
Yep. So I've got my URLs, my models should be okay. I'll go ahead and delete that. So inside of admin, let's say from models, import restaurant, menu, and what is it, dish? So is it admin site register restaurant menu dish? All right. So now if I refresh that, I got my restaurants Django app. Dishes. What in the hell is that about? Did I spell something wrong in my models? Where's
Your
dishes?
maiden name.
Wonder why it's an dish is. Oh, it's because it's just plural, because all of them are plural. That makes sense. All right. So with that, I can always create like a name. Does anybody have a restaurant that they like by them? No.
Taco Bell.
There we go. And so in cuisine type, notice how it's a drop down and it gives me the options. I guess that's Mexican. You can save and add another. What else? Anybody else?
Cracker Barrel.
Cracker. The 2 L's? No.
1.
And would that be American?
Yes.
All right. One more. Anybody else?
Rusans, R-U-S-A-N. It could be Japanese.
Nice. All right. Well, done with that. Now we can go to restaurants, menus, and we can just make up some stuff. So Taco Bell, the lunch menu, or I guess we'll create breakfast, lunch, dinner, Cracker Barrel, and they have a brunch menu. I don't know, but yeah, you can go ahead and Roussan's. Let's just say they have a dinner, happy hour, and late night, even though they might not. All right. So we've got a bunch of different menus. We'll create little items later. But yeah. All right, let's go ahead and actually, well, before we do that, let's go ahead and so we've got the models created. I added into the admin panel. We just created some restaurants and menu types for each restaurant. Now I'm going to go down here and create each path for like the restaurant list. So we'll create the first restaurant list view. So we can say from models, import, what do we want? The restaurant model, the menu model, and the dish model. So we're going to create the restaurant list. So I'm just going to go ahead and split the screen. So def restaurant list. Just going to take in the request. And we can say like restaurants equals restaurant dot objects dot all. And we can say like data equals all restaurants equals restaurants. And we can return render the request. I'll call this a restaurant dot rest list dot HTML followed by the data. All right. So inside, we're going to have to create a template. So templates. Now I'm going to actually create 3 directories, one for the restaurants. Actually, I'm going to call it restaurants. Rename. Restaurants. Oh, what's going on? Restaurants. Restaurants, menus. Oh, whoops. And last one, dishes. So inside the restaurants directory, so this is just how I'm creating the directory. You don't always have to create it with templates, then restaurants, the name of the app, and then put all your templates in there. You can put your templates, you can create multiple directories in your templates directory. Just as you reference them in your views, you just have to make sure it's the right path. So inside of our restaurants, I'm going to create a rest list.html. And I'm just going to do an H1 restaurant list. And then this is where I'll for rest in restaurant list. Got it. N4. And then I'm just going to create a P tag. Also create an A tag. Do rest.name. Then href equals, I'm just going to go to that for right now, just so it doesn't break. Yeah, let's just see if this works so far. So if I could just go to restaurants, I get a restaurant list. I don't have anything showing up. And why is that? All restaurants, because I didn't spell that. There we go. So we got Taco Bell, Cracker Barrel, and Rusan. Next, we'll deal with the ID, the restaurant ID. So we can do int rest ID, rest detail. Whoop. Restaurant detail. Yeah, request rest ID or restaurant ID. Then we can do restaurant equals restaurant dot objects dot get ID equals rest ID. And do data equals restaurant equals restaurant. And just like we're doing up here with the restaurant list, we'll just do the restaurant detail instead of a list. And then in here, we can do rest detail.html. H1 restaurant dot name. What else was there in the menus or in the models? Oh, cuisine type. Cool. H2 restaurant dot type. All right, so in the restaurant list, this is where we can do a named route, URL, restaurant detail, rest dot ID, like so. So if I refresh that, go to Taco Bell, we got Mexican, American, and Japanese. We can also uppercase it. What is it? First cap. So I may remember what the Django template tags. The cap. Cap first. Like so. And there, Japanese. And in here, we'll go ahead and create a list of menus. We'll just we could create that list of menus directly into here, but I want to go to /menus. So if we do rest ID / whoop, should add that there /menus. Menu list. Whoop. And then inside the views, in def menu list, request rest ID. So what can we do? So menus equals menu dot objects dot, is it filter? Will that work? And now in here, instead of the restaurant, it would be menus, menu list. So, and then in the menus directory, we'll create menu list.html. And very similar to how we're doing the restaurant list. We can say menu list for well, hold on, let's see. If this is a list of menus, well, we'll just display the menus. So for menu and menus,
Tom, I have a question as you're
Yep.
going through there. Were you sort of thinking about how to get the restaurant name passed into this?
yeah. If there's like a one-liner instead of having two, this might work, it might not. But yeah, is it filtered? You know?
No, I don't know. I just know I struggled with that a ton on Saturday because I was trying to, do that with only passing in one value, and I wasn't able. I don't think I ever figured it out that way. I think I eventually had both values come in through the URL. So I was wondering if there was another way to query it, get it that way, because I just didn't figure it out that way on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll see if this works. If it doesn't work, we can always, because we have the restaurant ID, we can do essentially do this, but do .menus.all. We could do that. I could also just pass in the restaurants and the menus like separately and have like the individual restaurant as well as the menus associated with that restaurant. I could also even just pass in the restaurants in here, the restaurant in here, and then in my template do restaurant dot objects dot all and grab all the menus that way too. But I just want to see if this works. If it doesn't, I have a feeling it won't. But if it does, I'll be pleasantly surprised. So menu dot models menu type list of dishes. So let's see if this is working so far. All right, if I refresh that, wait, hold on. Restaurant detail. All right, So in here, I thought I had. List of menus. I'll make this a named route. URL was a menu list. But I'll have to pass in the restaurant ID equals restaurant dot ID. Like so. List of menus. If I click that, goes to menus. And list of dishes. All right, so I just want to see Taco Bell. So we've got Mexican list of menus, lunch, dinner, lunch, breakfast. Go to Cracker Barrel, list of menus, restaurant, 2 menus, lunch, brunch, breakfast, or brunch, lunch, and breakfast. Breakfast, brunch, and lunch. All right. So I'm going to each individual menu. Now we'll want to create I'm just going to go ahead. Menu detail. So this part of it. So menus slash set of restaurant ID. I'll do menu ID. Menu ID. Menu detail. Then inside the views, create menu detail. Very similar to restaurant detail. Should change everything. Menu. In this one, we'll get the restaurant ID and the menu ID, but we don't need. So the restaurant ID is being passed in. Do we need the restaurant ID in this one? Probably not. So menu detail. I'm just doing like the basic bare minimum. And then we can create inside the menu detail.html. This is very similar to the restaurant detail menu. What was it? Cuisine type. Maybe we will pass in that restaurant name. We can also just say restaurant. ID, rest, ID. So in the menu detail, not menu cuisine type, maybe menu type for list of dishes. All right, let's see. So if I click here, oh, wait, where the So in the menu list, this is where my URL, menu detail. So it looks like I will need to pass in that restaurant. But I can always just do rest ID equals menu dot restaurant dot ID, and then menu ID equals menu dot ID. So that should work. So if I click breakfast for Crackle Barrel, go to lunch. So now I'm at restaurants, restaurant 2, which is the detail of the restaurant. I can list the menus. Now I'm at the lunch menu for the Crackle Barrel. Now, ideally, you might want to list all the actual dishes here, which probably would be good. But I also have a link that will link me to all the dishes. So it'll be like /dishes. I guess it'd be just like slash. Yeah, like a list of the dishes and then the dish detail. So list of dishes, go back to URL, view a list of dishes. /dishes. I'm gonna add slashes to all these because this could get you in trouble sometimes if they don't have it. So menu detail. So now we're going to be dish list. So now we can go to the views, def dish list. This will be the request, the restaurant underscore ID, the menu ID. All right. So now we can grab the dishes equals dish dot objects dot get menu equals menu ID. I'm wondering if I should add the restaurant to just rest ID. And I'm not adding the menu ID or the menu because I can easily get it from the dishes. So I can just do dishes dot menu. All right. Now I can do data. Just kind of keeping everything. Dishes. Why is that giving me an error? There we go. So I can return request, return render the request. And this is going to be the dishes / dish list .html and data. So in my templates, I've got restaurants, menu, and dishes. I could say dish list. And just like restaurant list and menu list, I can do the same thing, but for the dish list. Or menu list, I guess, right? So I'm just gonna split that just so I can look at what data is being passed in from my views. So I've got dishes. So for dish and dishes. Dish dot name. So I can see the dish name from dish dot menu. I think it's just dish dot menu dot. I always forget. Menu type. See if that will work. All right, so my menu detail needs to, that URL needs to get. URL dish list restaurant ID equals restaurant dot ID menu ID equals menu dot ID. And it looks like I'm missing. All right, so let's see if that worked. I'm getting an error. So dish matching query does not exist. All right, so in my views, dish.objects.get. Always do menu.objects.get ID equals menu ID dot dishes dot all. See if that worked. List of dishes, which we don't have any. But the dish list dish dot menu. Oh, I guess. See if this works. Not sure if that's going to work. Yep. No. So we can just say like menus or menu. Dishes is menu dot dishes dot all. And that should work. All right, why not? Query set objects has no dishes. Menu dot dishes.
So menu.dish.all.
You. Well, we can look at. So menu. Menu dot dishes. Well, it's probably because there isn't any, right? There aren't any dishes yet, which makes sense. So object dot dishes. So what was the error? Hmm. Oh, let's see. There we go. Lunch. Yeah, I just had that on there. So there aren't any actually right now. So we can actually go ahead and create some. I guess, yeah, let's go into admin, just create one. T8 2 3. So dishes, add a dish. To the menu of yeah, let's go with the tacos. I don't know how much is a taco nowadays. So Taco Bell. There's my taco. All right. So menu ID. Then we grab all the dishes from that menu. But let's see. Let's see if this might have some errors in it. So what if I wanted to do Cracker Barrel, list of menus, lunch, list of dishes. Oh, okay, so it's still working. So list of dishes from lunch and top. Okay. Cool. All right. So our last one, our last route is the actual. Well, let's go ahead and actually. Lunch. All right. We'll do the detail. So dishes, instead of menu ID, we'll do dish ID. So dish list, dish detail. But now our views are getting kind of big. So we got restaurant ID, menu ID. Now we'll do def dish detail, takes in the request, restaurant ID, menu ID, and dish ID. We can say dish equals dish.objects.get ID equals dish ID. Dish ID. Just making sure we can go from dish ID. So menu to dishes and dot menu, should be able to get the menu. And the menu, we should be able to get the restaurant. So I'm just going to do data, dish, and then return dishes, but instead of dish list, we'll do detail. Set a dish list. What was the dish name? Dot name from so dish dot menu type. No, menu. I always keep forgetting. From the blank menu from, yeah. From the blank menu from, let's see if we are able to get to dish.menu, dish.menu. Is it dot restaurant? Dot name. Let's see if that works. So dish detail. A tag. Detail. URL. Dish detail. Restaurant ID. Oh, dish dot menu dot restaurant dot ID. Menu ID equals dish dot menu dot ID. And the dish ID equals dish dot ID. Hopefully that works. So if we view restaurants, something's broken. Where is it saying improperly configured route? What's going on? All right, we got Taco Bell, list of menus, lunch menu, list of dishes, burrito, taco. Visit the burrito. All right, so. Oh, not the dish detail. That should go to menu detail. No, menu dish list. All right, hopefully that worked. If they don't get an error. So burrito from, all right, that didn't work. Dish.menu. See if. Oh, that's not right. Oh, it looks like I messed that up. Hopefully that worked. There we go. For menu from Taco Bell. They're going to add some prices to it. There we go. All right. So just a quick recap. Pretty much everything I did should be relatively review. It's just like adding additional templates and just adding on to the URL pattern, additional IDs, which make your views a little more involved because we have to account for the rest, the IDs as we keep building. And then we have one with multiple IDs on it. And yeah. So does anybody have any questions on the nested CRUD, like the deep nested CRUD of this? Does anybody want me to see, like, to create a new dish? Or no? Are we done?
Can you push this up?
Yep. Yeah. I will definitely push this up.